Welcome back to Firestorm Games, and you're joining us as we paint this Tau Tigershark AX-1-0 fighter bomber from the Aeronautica Imperialis range. Using just a few paints and some simple techniques, you'll be able to recreate this scheme and get your miniatures onto the tabletop and gaming in no time at all. So the first thing you need to do is to assemble your Tigershark as per the instructions, and then prime it with a black spray primer. The primer layer creates a better surface for our later paint layers to adhere to, and is always an important first step. The choice of a black primer here is a conscious one. By using black, we can use it to represent the shadows found in the recesses of the model, and therefore help to improve the model's level of detail. You will also notice the small section of wire at the bottom too. This was fixed in place by drilling a small 1mm hole and supergluing a length of 1mm thick wire into it. This will allow us to hold the model as we paint without needing to touch the actual miniature. The main technique I'll be using in this guide is called dry brushing, and I'll be starting off with the paint, the Fang. Dry brushing requires taking a large and preferably round brush like this one here, dipping it into your paint and then wiping the brush onto a piece of paper towel or tissue. This will remove any excess paint and help to work the paint through the bristles. With the brush prepped, we can start to apply some quick strokes to the surface of the model. By only applying a light amount of pressure here, you should find the paint accumulates to the large flat surfaces, but not in the recessed areas. Because of the primer we used, these areas remain black and so appear as shadows, which helps to bring out the level of details without the need for washes. You'll want to continue this technique across the whole model, which will result in a dark greyish blue base coat. Using that same dry brushing technique as before, albeit with a smaller size brush, we can next start to apply some camouflage stripes using some of the lighter paint, Teclis Blue. The stripes I'm creating here run from the front of the miniature to the back in diagonal or vertical lines. You can join up a few of these lines too, where you see necessary. For the underneath of the fighter bomber, I'll be using the larger brush again and dry brushing the whole area to create a lighter, solid colour. The final dry brushing step will see us using the smaller brush once again, and the even lighter blue of Lothern Blue. We can use this to apply some smaller lines next to the larger stripes we painted on in the last step. These areas need to be a little narrower and shorter than before, and once done, you'll have completed your three-tone camouflage pattern. Again, for the underneath, we'll be switching to our larger brush again and applying an all-over application of the Lothern Blue. Next, we'll be using a regular base coating technique to pick out some of the details of the Tigershark. These areas include the cowlings and vents of the jets, the weapon systems and the outer rims of the drone turrets. All of these areas are to be base coated with the very dark grey of Corvus Black. With my base coats, I like to thin out the paints just a little bit, as this will help them flow over the model's surface more easily. You can do this by mixing in just a little bit of water with your paint. You can also apply a couple of thin coats of this thinned out paint to ensure you get a good solid paint coverage. In the same way as we thinned out our paint for the last step, do the same with some Ceramite White. This can then be used to very carefully pick out two of the horizontal panels behind the crew compartment. As this paint is being applied over a darker base colour, you may find that a few layers are needed here to get the best paint coverage. Next, we'll be using some Retributor Armour to pick out the small round discs that are situated at the front and the rear of the hull. You can also use this paint and a fine tipped brush to very carefully paint the cockpit window as well. The final step will see us using another metallic paint, Leadbelcher, to highlight the areas that we base coated with Corvus Black. Edge highlight involves very lightly dragging your brush along the edges of the area you wish to highlight. This will leave a thin line of silver paint that will help to accentuate the details of the model. By using a silver highlight over the dark grey, we also create the appearance of these areas being a very dark metallic colour instead. And here we have the finished Tigershark, varnished and attached to its flying base. Whilst this guide focused on the Tigershark, you could apply the same techniques used here to the Barracudas too. In fact, the camouflage technique that we applied could be used to paint Imperial craft as well, with a few alternative colours of course. If you enjoyed this guide to getting your miniatures painted and ready for gaming in as little time as possible, using as few paints as possible, then please do let us know in the comments below. And if you have any suggestions for future tutorials, do let us know those as well. You can find this kit and all of the paints used in this video on the Firestorm Games web store for at least 10% off the RRP, and you can find a link to the site in the description below. And so we just want to finish off by saying a big thank you for watching this video, and we hope to see you again on Firestorm Games.